You are now listening to the Community Proud Podcast.
All right, this is episode 29 of the Community Proud Podcast. With me today, we have DJ Sal Cortez. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I want to apologize to everyone here real quick. I am a little under the weather, so if I have a little during our time,
Right.
I apologize. It's just part of the season. But thank you once again. I know you're probably really busy. You're, like you said earlier, you have some stuff going on in your other office, repainting, you said.
Right.
And I'd imagine that's just one thing on top of, many other things that you have already. But this is how it's going to go. I'm going to start off with this warm-up question, and then we'll get right into it.
All right, let's do it.
So I was stalking you a little bit earlier, and I saw this picture with E40.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Can I show the camera?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
40 water.
So, could you tell us the story behind that picture?
Okay. That was actually not that long ago. We're part of, so one of the things in being in the DJ, I guess being a DJ in the industry, one of the things you want to do is stay on top of your music, right? Mm-hmm. So we subscribe to multiple DJ pools, and what that is like member only type stuff. So you pay your dues and you have to register, and they qualify you and you become part of that. Mm-hmm. So that right there has to do with Headliners Music Club. We'll put their stuff on there too for all the DJs out there. Really good stuff out there. So anyhow, what they do for their members is about every 2 months they'll bring in an artist, and it's really cool. So basically, for that one with the E40, we were at I think it was the Dragon Lounge, or it was a karaoke bar in Hollywood. So they bring him in. He's on a small panel. DJs, the room's full. Everybody comes in, and they actually host drinks, light bites. It's a cool scene. It's pretty cool. So he's up there, and we get to ask him questions. He gives a little history on his, basically what we're doing here, but E40 on the other side with the crowd of DJs. Yeah. And then they turn it to the DJs, and they allow you to ask questions. Okay. Funny day with that one was when they tossed it out to the crowd, nobody asked any questions. So obviously I put my hand up and I had to throw a question at him. Yeah. So that led to another thing. There was a connection, which led into a really long story. With him tying E40 all the way back to New Orleans with Too Short and all the other hip-hop artists. It just kind of came full circle. So after the conference and after we went through all of that stuff, you get to hang out, mingle. He's on the stage. You guys get to go up and just basically hang out with them. So cool. The bottle that I'm holding there, I wasn't turning up. It wasn't anything. Yeah. E40 has his own line of liquor, alcohol, beer, whatever. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, he's known for creating his own drinks. Mm-hmm. 40 water is a 40-ounce beer. You could probably get it at Bevmo. Then he came up with Slurricane, which was a song. So I brought a bottle of Slurricane, that was a tongue twister, for him to sign. Yeah. So again, I was the only one that walked in with something. It was kind of corny, kind of cheesy, but I used to bump E40 when I was younger. Yeah. So to me, it was pretty cool. It was a moment that I really had fun with, and taking that bottle of Slurricane for him to sign was just something I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's something that sounds like something I would want to do with my favorite artist, which is Tyler, the Creator. I would want to take just like a piece of his merch or anything that he's done. He's done all sorts of stuff with merch and stuff like that, but it sounds like something I would do too. Right.
So that's what that was. Yeah. So basically, we just got to hang out, have a few drinks, and chop it up with E40. That's what that was.
That's awesome. Yeah. So let's get right into things. We're gonna start with a little bit of your early life. Mm-hmm. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Born and raised in the Central Valley. So I spent my elementary years in Dinuba, of all places. So I grew up across the street from the projects. I don't think a lot of people know that. So we'll put a lot of it on the table here so people can actually learn who I am. Okay. But grew up in Dinuba till I think it was 6th grade that I moved to Visalia. And I spent basically from junior high and my formative years were here in Visalia. Okay.
So what was high school like? Let's skip all the way to high school. What was
right around the corner, Redwood High School. So.
Okay.
And I was actually a shit student. I was not good at high school. One of the things that they didn't teach you back then was, or I guess when I was young, I'm a lot older. I don't know if you know how old I am exactly, but I grew up in the yeah, right. I grew up in the 90s. So I'm right now I'm 43 years old.
Ooh, I would have said 41 max.
Yeah, no, 43. So
23.
Yeah, okay. He's scoring points right now, right?
So, you have nothing for sale, Destiny.
Yeah, right.
You don't have slurricane.
Right, no slurricane. But no, I went to Redwood. I was a shit student. Not dropped out, but I ended up going to independent study for a couple of years, and then I went back my senior year to graduate. So nothing with sports or anything. I loved working. I've always been kind of a hands-on kind of guy. So as long as I can remember, my first job I took, I was 13 years old, and I have not had a time in my life ever where I didn't have a job or three. So,
So where did that sort of working drive come from, do you think?
Honestly, I don't know that it's in the DNA. On my dad's side of the family, everybody just works their faces off. So whatever it is that they're in, they just grind and constantly work, hustle. When I think back to all of my uncles and aunts and everybody on that side, I think it's just the Cortez blood that there's something in it where they just work. My memory of my dad was from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Really? He was working. There was never any stop there. So I don't know. I think it was just something that I learned or that was bred into me.
What did your dad do?
He was a mechanic, and he's still at the same place. So talk about longevity. He still works for the place that he worked a year before I was born.
Really?
Yeah. Same owners. The company has actually gone. They stopped producing what they produced, but they kept him on the staff to basically just manage their properties.
That's awesome.
So yeah, very interesting.
So what was some of the early work that you would do?
Oh, I've done everything, and I hope everyone's had the experience of doing hard labor. I've done everything from my very first job was mowing lawns.
Okay.
Working for a landscaper. They would drop me off at a complex with a lawnmower and a rake and say, "Get it done. I'll be back in 8 hours."
Wow.
So there was that throughout the summer. Worked in a lumber yard. Those that are from Visalia would remember Lumberjack. It was where the old theater is down on Mooney. They've torn it down and done a whole bunch of stuff with it, but. I worked in a lumber yard in the yard, so I was sharing this story with my wife the other day. I remember 15, 16, I think 15 and a half you get a job. So that was the worst job ever. But I think back to it and I have some fond memories of it.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine in the summertime, hand loading 1,000 bricks into the back of a van on a 110-degree day on a blacktop. Or we got to go deliver shingles, the things that go on a roof. So basically my job would be climb up there was this boom that would go over the house, and on a 110-degree day, you grab these 80-pound bags of shingles as they come off a conveyor belt, you throw them on your shoulder, you walk across the roof, you drop them off, and you do the next one. So you do that for an hour and a half in the middle of summer. So that was another job. And then during that time, I delivered pizzas. I worked at Thrifty's ice cream. I was an ice cream scooper. Yeah. So I've done a ton of stuff. Furniture mover. And then from there, one of the times where I feel like I really wasted a lot of time was I spent 5 years at a factory. And I did mechanic work, and I started on the bottom of the line, but wasted 5 years of just doing stuff a robot can do. So when I think back to that, I was like, man, I wish I could have that 5 years back, because it was one of those things where you just show up and you do something that's robotic, that really doesn't require any thought whatsoever. And I remember doing that, and my brain would just be going nuts. I would be thinking, I would have to entertain myself to be able to do that job. Headphones. I'd have a magazine propped up or even taped up there so I could read what I was doing.
Really?
Yeah. So that was probably the worst time or worst job I ever had. I think I'd much rather would have been up on the roof. At least I would have been building some muscles or something, rather than doing something a robot could do.
Okay. Yeah. Did you have any friends or anything that would kind of? What are some of the things that they would say?
It actually. When it came to what I was doing at the time, it was like a lot of my friends were kind of in the same zone, just kind of doing what they could, not what they wanted to or not what they were aspiring to do. They were just doing what they could to take care of their necessities, I should say.
Okay. Did you have any, I guess you can call them kind of like haters in high school? Like if you didn't go to school, instead you just wanted to go to work?
No, man. I can't say that I did. I had, I had a small group of buddies that I hung out with. One of them was my cousin. Him and I were partners. We were everywhere together. But no, I wouldn't say that. It was just we'd work, hang out, have fun, go back and work some more.
Yeah. And let me go back a little bit. What did your mom do?
So my mom when I was younger, started beauty college. Because I remember being a real young kid when she started, and then she became a beautician. As a matter of fact, at 75, and I shouldn't just give that credit to my dad's side, because my mom's 75. She retired 8 years ago, but she still works part-time because she can't just sit at home. So, from both sides, I guess that work hustle was just bred in.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like just growing up, and probably even now, I'd imagine, you just have a lot more discipline than what your peers might have at that time.
Yeah, I would say so. Even just getting a job early on at 13 and having to get something done. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't see a lot of people doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there, but I don't see it too often where it's like you're just working, especially from that young of an age.
Yeah. Let me think. I just had a question. Okay, so during all that, was there any sign of you becoming what you have today?
Oh, absolutely. So let's go back to my mom. So my mom's a really outgoing person, really fun to be around, put it to this day. My sisters, my mom, and my wife went to, I think it was a Luke Bryan concert a couple weeks ago. So one of the things I did for them that I thought was a really cool treat was I treated them to a limo through a buddy of ours. So I rented the limo. It was a total surprise for her. But my sisters, my wife, my mom all hop in the car. They head down to the concert. But on the way, they were picking up my other sisters. Yeah. They pull up to one of my sister's house, and my mom, so the story goes, is hanging out the window, 75-year-old woman with a bottle of champagne going, woo! So that's the kind of person my mom is to this day at awesome. 75 years old. That's awesome. So, so her going all the way back to my younger years, as long as I can remember, she would throw this giant party every single year. It was the luau. We're talking, we spent months preparing for it, right? So it was building the tiki huts, and my mom having, my brothers and sisters cut down palm leaves so they could do all this work, all gearing up to this once a year event that she would put together. When I became, I guess, aware enough, I was a guy playing the music for those parties. So there'd be albums, there'd be funky, weird turntables that were just not made for DJing, but they'd be connected to a whole bunch of hodgepodge of speakers. And at, I would say probably around 7 or 8 years old, I was the guy playing those records for all of my mom and, my uncles and her cousins and extended family. So I would say from probably 7, 8 years old, I started playing music for people.
So that's interesting that you say that, because I feel like especially now that so many people, like when they get into high school and a little bit after high school, they're just having a hard time just finding out what they want to do. But it sounded like you already knew what you wanted to do.
No, I didn't, because what's funny is I actually really enjoyed that. I would do things like go to the backyard. So I definitely had something kept pushing me towards music. I never became a musician. I don't know how to play an instrument, but I just loved music. Friday nights there'd be a mix show, and I remember being a kid, 8 years old, trying to make my own antenna out of coat hangers and stuff, so that I could pick up this radio station that was coming out of Fresno State. That was a radio station that they sent out hip hop music like on Fridays, and I would do everything that I could to try to get that. And here's giving up my age. Back in the day, cassette tapes. You ever seen a cassette tape?
Yes, I have.
So to record, what I would do is cassette tapes had little holes in them. And if you wanted to record over what was in there, you had to make a little spitball or a piece of tape, and you stick it in there, you put it in there, hit it, and you hit record. So I would do that to record all the music that was coming through, static and all. But, I didn't know that this could actually be something. Aside from all those all that work I did in my younger years, flash forward, I ended up working for the county health department. Spent 10 years there. My last stint of it was under a government contract that left me in a position that I could actually take a little leap. And that's kind of when I created Bliss. But that entire time that I was working for the county and doing all these other things, DJing wasn't a real thing. So, I was doing nightclubs, I was doing nightlife parties, backyard boogies, literally everything that you could go to play music on the weekends or after hours. But it was always like, when are you going to stop doing that? When are you going to quit? When are you going to get serious about your job, your 9 to 5?
Yeah.
So to me, everybody kept suppressing that part of it. And it kept me suppressed. I stayed down there. I was like, yeah, this isn't real. I can't really do nothing with this. Until that last year that I was actually working for County of Fresno. It was under a contract and it was coming up to an end. But that last year I said, you know what, we're going to dive in. We're going to, my partner JR, I was like, we're going to get together. We're going to start doing bridal expos. We're going to try to get more into the wedding game because there was just more business. It was a different type of event. Budgets were a little bit better than working nightlife and this other stuff. So it was like, if we want to create a living, we've got to go where that is. So that year before that contract expired, which was in 2013, so 2012 to 2013, we did our very first bridal show. A couple of dudes showed up, wet behind the ears, didn't really know what to expect. And people didn't really take to us at first. It was like, oh, these guys coming into the wedding market, right?
Yeah.
What do these guys know about it? So we did that. Year one, after that first show, we were able to come up with about 80 events for the year. So JR and I, either working them together or splitting them to do those events. That turned into, 80 events that first year where the contract's over and we're doing it full time. After that first year, it was so successful, we doubled to 160 events the next year.
Wow.
Opened up an office, which is down on Mooney now, but we opened up that office and that became our headquarters. And ever since then, up until last year, we closed out last year with over 300 events.
Wow.
200 total weddings. We've got 5 guys working in the Bliss umbrella. It's just grown. Yeah. But a lot of that has to do with our background that just built up and snowballed in the work that we put into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty. It was a crazy ride. I didn't know what to expect, but I found that, and I thought about it. And everybody says, it'll happen at the right time or when you're ready. I feel like if I didn't spend all those years of listening to everybody say, when are you gonna get a real job? When are you gonna quit playing with your records or DJing or whatever? Which is funny because I was a part owner of a record shop early on, and even when I owned the record shop, they were still like, when are you gonna get serious about what you do?
Really?
So nobody around me ever thought that could be a career or it could actually be something. It was like, you have this county job, go be the county guy.
Yeah.
But it was wasn't satisfying. And no knock, because I'm sure there's departments are, but the county job was like, you show up in the morning like, hey, good morning everybody, and they'd look at you and they'd be like, what's so good about it? They hated their job, they hated being there. And it was like, we got all our digits, we're here to help people, there's things we can do. It was just so negative and suppressive in that as well. It was always the weekends and the music and the creative outlet that kind of kept me level from going crazy, because I think if I only did the county job, I'd probably be in a hospital somewhere with the meltdown. But anyways, that first year, man, that first year from 80 to 160 events is where I was like, oh shit, this is real. Like, we could do something with this. And that's what we're doing. We poured everything into it, our heart, our soul, and everything we do is for this company, for our clients.
Okay, so you said that you were in this sort of like suppressive state. Was it just the business moving forward? Is that what kind of pulled you out, or was it something more personal than that?
No, I think it was once we did that first wedding show, I fell in love with everything about it.
Okay.
Nightlife events are cool to a certain point, but as I was getting older as well, I didn't want to be around a certain thing, I should say. So, and it feels like it was always just kind of programmed. It almost became robotic, like going back to doing the job that a robot could do. It was the same songs, the same music, the same format. And when you try to deviate from that in a nightlife setting, they didn't want that. You could be bumping something that everybody knows, Too Short, Blow the Whistle, and everybody's, it goes on and on. They're doing their thing. Yeah. And then you go, I'm going to try this new song. And you drop a new song in, and then they stop and stare at you like, what's this?
So I want to talk to you now about the actual logo itself and the name itself. So
okay. How
did you come up with Bliss, the name?
It was, I think, if I remember right or correctly, it was one of those shower thoughts. It was, that I think that's the one time that I can actually sit there and just turn off everything. And what's funny is I always got a podcast playing in the background. And what's funny is I'll put it on, I'll connect it to a Bluetooth speaker, it'll be loud, And I get in the shower and I'm doing my thing and I'm not even listening to it anymore because I'm with my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think when I was thinking about wedding, it was like, wedding game, we got to do something that just ties in overall, but not just, because we ended up coming up with Bliss Event. I came up with Bliss Events Group with using the word bliss because it just related to the wedding industry and happiness and bringing joy and what with what we do. It was like, man, it's got to be bliss. We got to bring bliss to every event. Yeah. And that's where that came from. The event group, actually, I stole that name. I used to work for a company when I spent a couple of years down in LA, 3 years. And I was working for this company that worked for Sony Pictures. So it was a subcontract company where we would install furniture in all the executive offices. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty cool. We worked out of like a 300,000 square foot warehouse full of furniture, old movie props, really cool stuff. Yeah. And we would go deliver it. But the name of that company was Davidson Resource Group. So they were a resource group for the movie lot. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wanted to be a resource group for the entertainment industry, the wedding industry. So hence came the name, the bliss, happiness, whatever. Yeah. Resource group is what I have in mind.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what does that name, bliss, mean, or the word itself, bliss, mean to you?
It means exactly what it is. I mean, I can't take it any further than, when you hear bliss, what do you think? You're just like, heaven, birds singing, what is it when Cinderella wakes up and everything's just surrounded? That's just bliss, man. Yeah. So for me, as a matter of fact, I know this is going to take a moment, but I want to share something with you. This is probably my most favorite moment ever in DJing. Well, I got two, and they happened in the last couple of years. So if you'll give me a moment, I want to show you, because I want to show you a picture of really what bliss means to me.
Okay.
So I was doing a wedding last year, and we're getting back to what bliss is and what it is to me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it until this moment. So, of course, everything that we just talked about and happiness and everything, but this was the moment. I'm going to pull it up here in a second. So I'll give you the back end. Okay. So I'm at Wolf Lakes and I'm DJing a wedding. And this woman comes up in front of me and she's got this thing on her head. So you can tell, you start thinking cancer. There's something going on there, right? You could tell that she had something ailing her. But she walks up and she's got the biggest, brightest smile on her face. And I'm here on my console, I'm DJing, and she's literally right there. And she walks up, there's like a step lower, so she's like right here, and she goes, and she points at my speaker. And I've seen her over here off to the side. She was just kind of feeling the groove and just kind of watching everybody with this big smile. Mm-hmm. And then when she turned around and she's telling me, and I was like, she goes, I want to come around. So I was like, yeah, come on by, come around. Mm-hmm. So she comes around the DJ booth. She walks up to the speaker and she puts her hand on it and she's just dancing and she's feeling it, right? Yeah. She's totally in that moment. Let me show you the picture. She was deaf. So this is her. Let me see here. I want to show you. This is her just completely feeling the music. And in a moment where she couldn't hear what was going on, but she could feel the energy. She could feel the vibe of the room. And it was just filling her full of joy. I mean, I thought that was,
smile, man.
Dude, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I've never felt, and I know you're not supposed to carry pride with you, but I was never more happy and proud to have been a DJ in that moment and help her feel that way. Because how often does she get to feel that way?
I mean, probably not very often. Honestly.
So if you ask me what's bliss, that's bliss.
That's awesome.
That's it right there. That was one of my best moments ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've done some cool stuff DJing in different places, and I can talk about that, but that by far is my favorite.
That's amazing. I mean, if she could just teach so many people with just that video right there, if you know what I mean. Like so many people take these things, circumstances that happen to them, and they choose to be miserable. Obviously, it's bad circumstances.
Right.
At that point, you have a decision to make. She chose to be happy.
Right.
She could be sitting at home at that point and be like, oh, I'm deaf, I'm sick, I'm whatever, and could have had this attitude about it, right? And that's what a lot of people do. But she chose to take what she has, and I mean, it was like you would hardly even know, honestly, because she was just having a good old time.
She was just into it. Yeah,
she chose to have that good attitude.
Yeah, that was cool. She absolutely did not. One of the things I know a lot of people carry with themselves, whatever their circumstances are, some people will carry what you're talking about. I call it of being a victim, you know what I mean, of whatever the circumstances are. I learned a long time ago to appreciate everything I had, and I know for a fact any problem that I could ever possibly have is never worse than what I witnessed personally. So in my younger years, in 2001, I lost a younger brother. He was a victim of homicide, and it happened down the street from our house. So to watch my mom and my dad go through the pain of losing their baby, the youngest of all siblings, go through that, nothing could compare to that. I don't think your own demise could compare to that, of losing your baby, your child, period. Yeah. So after that moment, and when that happened, whenever it came, I'd hear somebody bitching about a bill, complaining about a dead battery, a flat tire, oh, bad hair day, oh shit, my shoe, I got ugly shoe, whatever it is. Yeah. It just sounded like complete horseshit to me, because I watched somebody go and still go through, in their moments, one of the worst periods in their life. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with money, circumstances, what your hair looks like, whatever. Because, one of the things you can't buy is health. You can't buy life. Yeah. You just can't do it. So when people have circumstances and they can still be happy in the moment or whatever it is, it's never going to be as bad as that. She can't hear the music, but she can feel it and enjoy it. And again, if I can do what we do, if I can provide that moment for somebody, dude, that's what we're here for. Yeah. So, helping people on the biggest day of their life, there's never a day beyond a wedding day that any one person's going to throw that large of an event for themselves. So to be a part of it, help them celebrate their, them beginning their new legacy as a wedding DJ. This is probably not going the direction you thought, huh? Because it was like, a lot of people think DJ, cool, cutting, scratching.
Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know anything about DJing in general. I'll just be upfront with that. So I don't ever, and because of this right now, and because of other stuff I don't know about, right. Fast, I don't really come with any expectations.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I just start and.
Okay, very cool. But most of the people think when they think DJ, party, woohoo, and just that side of it. And for me, it's really because it's a passion. There's just so many other layers to it. It's just completely different for me.
Yeah. I want to talk about a little bit of some of the things you've gone through while, I guess, building up the business that you have now. What are some of the things that what would be a better way to word this? Like, I don't want to sound repetitive either. Like, I ask this almost every podcast. Like, okay. What's one of your favorite failures that's happened?
Favorite failures?
Because, everyone's got that certain something that happened to them, and they just kind of look back at oh man, I'll never do that again. I've got to be super thankful that I don't think I've ever had a major failure that really stands out. Man, I'm really thinking about this one. I've been at events where things have happened, but like an overall failure, a lot of that happened in my, I guess, younger years with other things. Like we just produced a wedding expo, and producing an event moving forward after my biggest failure, I guess, in business period, was I produced a event in 2008, which was a kind of a car show / concert thing at the Visalia Convention Center. And that was probably my biggest loss ever. I wasn't committed to it. Although I committed to it, I didn't commit myself to promoting and creating the event that it was, and I lost a shit ton of money. But it was after that it put me so far in a hole, and that was kind of a bad year for me. 08, 09, house foreclosed, one of those bad loans, transition in jobs. Like there was just a lot of negative stuff going on at that time. And to say that DJing, that I had a failure, that was probably the one thing that stayed consistent even through the bad times. Was even though I was, transitioning jobs, losing the house, doing all these other things, I could still go out on the weekends and just kind of disconnect from all of that and actually just be in the moment doing the creative stuff with the DJing. But so I guess the biggest failure would be, as far as work or production, would be that event from 2008 that just was a complete flop. Yes. It was really scary because, that year one that we had those 80 events, and I decided, you know what?
we're going to get a shop. We're going to get an office front. That's going to make us more legit. We're going to be brick and mortar. So even doing that was scary because it was like, man, I got to pay not only my rent, but now I got to pay office rent. Now I've got to pay utilities and business licenses. And literally I had to furnish the place. Like I was doing budgeting and the work that we had, if it was like literally on the line to where I would probably have 2 cents in my account at the end of every month. But I don't know that putting ourselves in that predicament created or ignited that fire that we had in our belly to go even harder. It was like throwing, gas on it because we worked harder and we never felt it. So even from that year one where it's like, okay, now I've got, a couple extra $1,000 in bills from now on, we just managed to actually go out and get enough work so that we could actually take care of that. And again, it was just one thing, just like he said, one foot in front of the next. One thing just kept leading to another, and we have not felt any struggle. We have had no issues connecting with, within the industry itself. So thank God, I hope there's nothing in our future that would be a negative. But as far as Bliss is concerned, I can't say that we've had any.
That's good. That's an amazing thing to happen. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like even with this podcast, I feel like I just run out of guests every weekend.
Right.
No, but really though, I mean, it's this is just a little podcast, and I feel like I run out of guests and run out of things to do, and here you are. You this whole thing has just thrived.
Yeah, and I've got, and this is where it gets better because everything is in connections, right? Here's a little tip. I know Kendall loves listening just random podcasts, right? So one of the ones I was listening to, I think it was Donald Miller, who was with Brand Story. Look that up. One of the things that we're talking about was his buddy who went to Harvard Business School, or somebody went to Harvard Business School. And the one thing that they teach at Harvard Business School from day one to graduation day is business is just relationships. Your business is podcasting. Your business is relationships. Relationship with Kendall got me in here. Now the relationship that you now have with me because of Kendall, I got people I can bring to you that are pretty interesting that you could actually have on this podcast. So it just we create an ecosystem through relationships.
Yeah, I appreciate that. By the way,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But I was saying this on last week's podcast, like that's what community is all about to me.
Right.
Just helping each other out. Hey, you're doing this in the community, I'm doing this in the community. Let's come together and brainstorm like, hey, how can we make this work for both of us so we can both thrive in this community together? And that's, just one of the reasons why I started this podcast. It's a whole nother story, but that's exactly what Community Proud Podcast means to me. Just coming together as a community, helping each other out.
Love that. Nice.
So, I want to talk about if someone else were to want to start doing what you're doing. Let's say that they're my age and they're trying to figure things out. I'm 20, by the way. Maybe they don't have that big of a budget. Maybe they think they don't know a lot of people. Whatever excuse that they can think of. What are some of the things that they could do to help themselves out if they wanted to get into DJing?
To help themselves out, it would definitely be, well, number one, if that's what they're going for, obviously there's something inside of them kind of gravitating them towards that world. So it's really not that hard. It's finding somebody that finding a DJ that's actually, you like what they're doing. And it would be something like just reaching out to them and, hey man, can I shadow? Can I help? Can I lug cases? Can I do something to help you do what you do? That would probably be the easiest way to actually becoming a DJ. There's no direct path. It's not like you go get a bachelor's in DJing and then you go, submit resumes and get hired by XYZ. It just doesn't work that way. Not for this at least. So that would probably be the best way to do it, I would say, is find somebody that's thriving and you like their model and kind of get yourself into it just like anything else. Don't go in there asking for pay. Don't go in there asking, hey, you're lucky to have me, so I'm gonna be with you this weekend. It's gonna be more of a, what can I do? What can I bring to you? How can I help you do what you do or help you be better? And then from there, it's just you got to go in like a dry sponge and soak up as much as you can. For instance, a great example of that is JR, the guy we were just talking about earlier. JR, I met him on his 21st birthday. I was DJing a nightclub. He walked in and he was like, man, if you ever meet JR, he's just a ball of energy, a big smile on his face. And he was like, I want to do what you're doing. Teach me how to do that. And for the next 2 years, like clockwork, Monday or Tuesday, hey brother, where are we going to be at this weekend? What are we doing? Show up, no pay, pure sweat equity, lugging cases, rolling up cords, laying out cords, setting up speakers, doing all this stuff. He did that for 2 years solid. And we're talking probably, I don't know, an easy 100 events where I would take care of him, but he had no expectation of pay, no expectation of nothing other than show me how to do this. So to today, he's doing probably 50, 60 Bliss events a year, which are higher end events. He's doing weddings, a lot of our corporate stuff, and he's the guy. He's my guy.
That's awesome.
So yeah. So again, it would be just get out there and put in some sweat equity.
Okay. I was gonna say a little bit ago that that sweat equity thing that you were talking about reminded me a lot about Gary Vee.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he calls it dirt, right? He calls it dirt, doing the work.
Yeah, just do like exactly what you just said. Whatever you want to do, go to someone that's done it before and shadow them.
Yeah, it all goes back to even like the same thing that you never wanted to hear from your parents, right? They know better, they're trying to teach you better, but sometimes you kind of resist it. Yeah. You gotta open up and accept it, and it'll definitely make the road easier. Yeah. Because I know if I listened to some of the stuff my parents said, some of the paths I took would have been a lot easier. But I went against it, but sometimes you're not open to it. You gotta be open to it, especially if it's something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah. So the year is 2025, Sal. Where do you see yourself in Bliss at that time?
I love that question. I want to keep growing and evolving. I've got some top secret projects in the works right now that we're working on, but definitely, actually, one of my ultimate goals is, like you love community, I love coffee and community. So my goal is to kind of just create my own little version of a coffee shop. Don't want anything like a Starbucks, nothing like that, but something that's just really authentic, really good, really cool. But I want to be able to mix the community, the work, the art, the DJing, the music, and coffee all into one thing. So, but yeah, I've got a couple of projects that are coming up really cool, and I want to keep growing the wedding vendor community, the business community, with anything that has to do with events, and that's what those projects actually are aimed to do. So it's going to pull everyone in a little closer, make it a little bit tighter, a little bit stronger, and help them shine bright. So I want to help other people be better at what they do.
Okay. I call this next question the billboard question.
Okay.
If you could have a billboard for the entire world and they had to look at that billboard on their way to work or wherever every single day, what would you put on that billboard? It could be something inspirational. You could just put your business if you want. You can, whatever you want.
It's going to be put in sweat equity. Because even I did that, even just getting to that, because it's like a ground stepping stone to get wherever you're going. I did a lot of events where it was like nobody really led me down a path. Nobody taught me everything that I know about business, and everything that I know. It's not self-taught, it was self-sought. I went and looked for it. Nobody said, hey, this is where you get this information. This is where you get it. So put in the sweat equity was me going out and seeking that stuff out, figuring it out. Again, I wasn't a very good student, so I sucked at school. I hate books. I still do. But if I can build something or work with my hands, I'm fantastic at it. But it's just a stepping stone, man. So put in the sweat equity, go out and seek whatever it is. So like I said, nobody led me down this path. I just kind of figured it out. I think if someone would have kind of said, hey, no, come over here, let me show you this way, I probably would be I'd be in 2025 already, if that makes any sense, instead of 2020, because I would have did it at a younger age, right? Yeah. So, yeah, just put in the work. Just shut up and work. Because I feel like too many people don't do that. For us, and I'll be quite honest with you, the first few years, it was like we had our nose down and we were just grinding, working, and every time we came up for air, it was like, oh shit, we've done a lot of cool stuff. And it was like go down and work and then come back again. It was like, holy shit, it's been 2 years, we doubled our client base, like it's crazy. And it was like, go work, and then you come back up again, it's like, oh shit, we own a wedding expo and we're doing all this cool stuff, and then we have these moments, and it's like, dude, it's just an awesome thing, but none of that stuff happens without doing the work.
Yeah.
So
we're about to wrap things up here.
Okay. I feel like we could go for another hour at least.
Well,
no, I'm joking. I know, it's getting dark and we're losing light. I love the fact that you said 20?
Yes.
And you actually are doing your own podcast. You know how many people I know that say, oh, I'm getting a podcast, and they're 25, 30, 35, 40, and they haven't done it. Yeah. You're doing it. You're doing the work.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone that's watching. I still got another question to go.
Let's have it.
And I've been asking this question ever since the 10th episode. When it's all said and done, you know, your life, what do you want people to think when they hear your name?
So we're talking about legacy.
Legacy.
We're talking about legacy. Davey D and I, he's another one of our DJs, just literally had this conversation about being able to bring joy to anybody around us, or, you know, when we can, how we can. And the fact that we get to be a small part of all of these events and all these different people's lives, it's pretty special. So it's been a few years, over the last few years, we've had a couple of deaths within the family, and when you go to these funerals, a lot of the images and the pictures that are typically up, you know, around the casket or as you enter, are wedding day pictures. And that's where it really clicked, like, holy crap, like we're a part of something really big. I mean, it's them kicking off their legacy. So our legacy is bringing joy to them. And another wedding vendor, I love sharing this, and I shared it on stage at the wedding expo, was another vendor had shared this with another vendor, and then it got transferred to me, and I'm gonna share it with all of you guys. When it comes to a wedding day, on a wedding day, that's the only time in that couple's life, it's the only time that all of their friends and all of their families are going to be in the same place at the same time. And she goes, no, actually it's not. She goes, it's the second time, but the second time you're not there, because the first time is your wedding day and the second time is your funeral. So with the weight of that, like, just kind of sucked the air out of my stomach, and I was like, man, that is so heavy, right? So when it comes to that one day where they have all these people there and that we can actually go in there and help them just have the best possible day that they can, to me, that we just created something super special. And we get calls afterwards or the next morning like, oh my God, it was so awesome when you did this, when you did that, or this happened or that happened, or because you did this, that happened. To be able to just be a part of that. So when it's all done and said, I think it'd be cool for people to think that we just brought a little bit of light. You know, even when people show up to wedding day, sometimes they might not be in the greatest mood. They have life going on, but if we can get in that moment in time and just leave all of that at the door and just kind of, again, with your community, the one that's there, just have the best possible time you can. I think that's awesome. So again, bringing light, man, bringing some happiness, some joy, and doing something that we love to do.
Yeah, and I could tell just a little time I've been talking to you, I can tell that a couple things, that you don't like being in just the same place. You want to keep growing, and the fact that you just truly, genuinely, like, want to bring bliss to people's lives. And I think a lot of people can learn from that, because they say something like, I could say stuff about the community all day long. At the end of the day, am I doing it or not? And I feel like what you've said so far is exactly what you've been doing. And I appreciate people like you that actually do that.
Awesome. I love that. And the funny part, or the funny thing about that, is when we talk about people trying to figure out what they want to do, like I said before, I spent years doing a 9-to-5, right? Not knowing that this could be my full time, but the whole time it was under me. It was down there doing it. So it wasn't until I hit my late 30s that I actually took what was my hobby and my fun time and made it my full time.
Yeah.
So it's still out there. Some people don't know, even if, you know, in your 20s, it took me till my late 30s to figure out that this is where I should be, this is where I need to be, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
So that's gonna about wrap things up.
Okay.
Is there anything that I might have missed that you want to say, or do you want to shout yourself out?
No, just, follow the Instagram at Bliss Events Group, at DJ Sal Cortez, or the Bliss Events Group one will take you there. Follow us. If you guys have any other questions, or you something came up, you're like, I want to hear more about that, DM us. We'd be happy to tell you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
For taking time out of your schedule. Shout out to Kendall once again.
Kendall, what's that?
We'll see you on the next episode, episode 30. So we'll see you next time on the Community Proud Podcast.
This was episode 29 of the Community Proud Podcast.